Can I ask you something? Have you ever liked a woman only to find out you weren't the only man interested in her? Maybe she was beautiful. Maybe she was intelligent. Maybe she simply had the kind of personality that naturally attracted people. And suddenly you realize something. You've got competition. Now, what usually happens next? A lot of men start trying harder. They text more often. They become extra available. They spend more money. Some even start changing who they are, hoping she'll notice them. But let me ask you this. Have you ever noticed that trying harder doesn't always make her choose you? In fact, sometimes it seems to have the opposite effect. So, what's really going on? Why does one man stand out while the others slowly fade into the background? Is it because he's richer, better looking, more successful? Sometimes, yes, but not as often as people think. Here's what I've noticed. When a woman has plenty of options, she isn't just choosing a man, she's choosing how she wants to feel with that man. And that's where many guys miss it. They spend so much time trying to outshine the competition that they forget the real question isn't, how do I beat the other guys? The real question is, what kind of man naturally makes her want to choose him? That's exactly what we're going to discuss today. Not tricks, not mind games, not pretending to be someone you're not. We're going to talk about the qualities and behaviors that make a man stand out, even when she's surrounded by plenty of options. And trust me, one of those qualities surprises a lot of people. So let's get into it. Let me ask you another question. When you find out a woman has a lot of options, what's the first thing that goes through your mind? For a lot of men, it's something like, I need to do more than the other guys. And that's exactly where the problem begins. Think about it. One man is buying expensive gifts. Another is sending her good morning and good night messages every single day. Someone else is replying to her stories the second she posts them. Before you know it, everyone is trying to outdo everyone else. Now, here's what I want you to think about. If 10 men are all doing the same thing, what makes any one of them different? The truth is, the more you compete, the more you start looking like the competition. Have you ever noticed that instead of standing out, you blend in? Now, don't misunderstand me. There's nothing wrong with being kind. There's nothing wrong with showing interest, but there's a difference between showing genuine interest and trying so hard that you forget who you are. So let me give you an example. Imagine you walk into an interview acting like someone else because you think that's what the interviewer wants. Maybe you'll impress them for a few minutes, but how long can you keep pretending? The same thing happens in relationships. If a woman chooses a version of you that isn't real, sooner or later, the real you will show up. And when that happens, she may start wondering who you really are. So instead of asking yourself, how do I beat the other guys? Ask a different question. How do I become the best version of myself? Because here's what I've learned. Women may notice the man who's trying the hardest, but they often remember the man who's comfortable being himself. And believe it or not, that's where real confidence begins. Now, this brings us to something even more important. What is it about certain men that naturally makes women gravitate toward them, even when they aren't trying to impress anyone? Let's talk about that next. Let me ask you something. Have you ever met a guy who wasn't the richest, wasn't the best looking, and wasn't the loudest person in the room? Yet women naturally enjoyed being around him. And you look at him and wonder, what's his secret? Before you say, maybe he's just lucky, let's think about it for a second. I don't believe it's luck. I think it's something many men overlook. You see, a lot of guys believe a woman is searching for the perfect man, the perfect body, the perfect job, the perfect lifestyle. But is that really what happens? Look at the couples around you. Are all the men perfect? Not at all. Some are still building their careers, and some aren't the most handsome. Some are quiet, while others are naturally funny, yet they were still chosen. So, what made the difference? Here's what I think. Many women aren't looking for perfection, they're looking for authenticity. A man who's comfortable with himself, a man who doesn't feel the need to compete with every other guy, a man who knows his value without constantly trying to prove it. Have you noticed something? The people who are truly confident rarely talk about how confident they are. You see it in the way they speak, in the way they carry themselves. They're relaxed, they're present, they're not desperate for approval. Now, let me ask you this. Have you ever noticed that some men spend months chasing a woman, but another man comes along and within a short time, she seems genuinely interested in him? You see that happen and you think, wait a minute, I've been trying so hard. What did he do that I didn't? Well, here's something worth thinking about. Maybe he wasn't trying to chase her at all. Maybe he was simply making her feel seen. Now, what's the difference? When you're chasing someone, your focus is usually on getting them to like you. You're constantly wondering, what should I say next? Should I text her now? Why hasn't she replied? What if another guy is talking to her? Everything becomes about winning her attention. But when you make someone feel seen, the focus changes. You're genuinely interested in getting to know her. You pay attention when she talks. You remember the little things she mentions, not because you're trying to impress her, but because you actually care. And believe me, people can tell the difference. Think about your own life. Who do you enjoy talking to more? Someone who's always trying to impress you, or someone who listens, asks thoughtful questions, and makes you feel like your opinions matter? Most of us would choose the second person. Women are no different. They appreciate a man who is curious about who they are, not just excited about how they look. Now, don't misunderstand me. I'm not saying you should become overly available or agree with everything she says. Not at all. You can be interested without losing your confidence. You can be kind without becoming desperate. In fact, that's what makes the difference. A man who values himself can also value the woman he's getting to know, and that's a combination many women naturally respect. Now, here's where things get even more interesting. Once she enjoys being around you, what makes her think, I don't want to lose this man? Let's talk about that next. Can I ask you something? Have you ever noticed that some men are available all the time? The moment she sends a message, they reply. If she calls, they drop everything. If she changes plans, they simply adjust theirs. At first, that sounds like what a caring man should do, doesn't it? But let me ask you this. Is being available the same as being valuable? I don't think so. Here's why. There's a difference between making time for someone and making them your entire world. Think about the people you admire. Most of them probably have goals. They have responsibilities. They have hobbies and friendships. In other words, they have a life they're excited about. Now imagine meeting a man like that. He's kind. He enjoys spending time with you, but he also has purpose. He's building something. Doesn't that make him more interesting? Now compare that with a man whose whole day revolves around one person. Every decision he makes depends on her. Every moment of happiness depends on her attention. That's a lot of pressure for anyone. Don't get me wrong. And I'm not saying you should ignore her messages or pretend to be busy. That's not confidence. That's playing games. What I'm saying is keep building your own life, continue growing, keep chasing your goals. Because when a woman sees that you're happy with your life, she's more likely to feel she's joining your journey, not carrying your happiness. And here's something worth thinking about. People often appreciate what adds value to their lives. When your life has direction, your time naturally becomes more meaningful. Not because you're trying to make her chase you, but because you're showing her that you're a man with purpose, and purpose has a quiet confidence that's hard to ignore. Now, let's finish this discussion by talking about the one quality that often makes a woman stop comparing you to everyone else and start seeing you as the man she truly wants to be with. Before we wrap this up, let me ask you one last question. Imagine you're standing in front of a woman who has plenty of options. Different men are texting her, and some are more successful than you. Some may even be better looking. So does that automatically mean you've lost? I don't think so. And here's why. At the end of the day, choosing a partner isn't like shopping for the most expensive item. It's about asking yourself, who do I see building a future with? That's a completely different question. You see, a woman may be impressed by one man. She may have fun with another, but the man she chooses is often the one who makes her feel emotionally secure. The one whose actions match his words, the one she can trust. Think about it. If she can't rely on you, why would she build a future with you? If she's always wondering whether you'll disappear when life gets difficult, how can she fully invest her heart? That's why trust is so attractive, not because it's exciting, but because it gives a relationship something excitement alone never can. Stability. Now, let me ask you this. When she thinks about you, what comes to her mind? Does she see someone who's always trying to impress her? Or does she see someone who's honest, dependable, and comfortable in his own skin? Because those are two very different men. One spends his energy trying to be chosen. The other simply lives in a way that makes choosing him feel natural. And believe me, women notice that difference. So if there's one thing I'd like you to remember from today's discussion, it's this. Stop worrying about how many options she has. Start focusing on becoming a man of character, confidence, and consistency. Because when those qualities become part of who you are, you're no longer trying to compete with other men. You're giving her a reason to stop looking for someone else. Now, before we end, let's bring everything we've discussed together with one final thought.